I haven't always lived here in Mississauga. My parents have worked hard and have gone through many transitions to get to where we are now. This is how I ended up in Canada. My name is Faria Khatija, and this is my place in Canadian history. Although none of my family members have taken part in the India-Pakistan War, some events have affected them in certain ways. With the partition of India, the violence amongst Hindus, Sikhs, and Muslims created an atmosphere of hate and violence throughout that spread between the whole country and the government. The idea of putting together two religions, in this case Hindu and Muslim, was almost impossible. And it was as if putting together two positive magnets. With the partitions, many people were unwillingly misplaced in different parts of the country, which resorted to anger expressed through violence and riots. The beliefs in both religions were different, as well as places of worship and the overall goals of the religion. The leaders for each country wanted different things for their own countries. India wanted control of the territory given to them, full of resources and strategic benefits. India's perspective, the territory of Kashmir belonged to them. However, Pakistan wanted the territory because the Muslims were supposedly stuck in the territory after the partition of India and therefore wanted to claim the area based on its people. In their eyes, the majority of Muslims in the country believed the territory belonged to them instead of the Indians. Overall, there were many disagreements between parties and therefore different reasoning of why the area should belong to themselves. This is a typical argument where both sides refuse to talk it through instead of disagree on each and everything with no compromise involved whatsoever. The strong-willed countries had many problems regarding political interests. This motivated each party to declare war for the sake of their own rights. In 1947, the first Indo-Pak War over Kashmir is fought, after armed tribesmen from Pakistan's northwest frontier province invaded the territory in October of 1947. The fighting continues through the second half of 1948. During this time in Canada, the Canadian Citizenship Act comes into effect in the year of 1946. The Chinese Immigration Act of 1923 is repealed. The laws limiting Asian immigration to Canada are repealed, therefore, the Canadians of Asian descent are allowed to vote in federal elections. A federal law was changed as such that Canadian women would no longer lose their citizenship automatically if they married a non-Canadian. Between the 1940s to the 1960s, Canada and India relations were enhanced because of the personal ties which developed between the Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and two Canadian Prime Ministers who served during those years, Louis St. Laurent and Lester B. Pearson. At the United Nations and in the Commonwealth, on issues such as the Korean War armistice and the Suez War, there was a commitment between India and Canada. Canada's aid program to India began in 1951 and grew under the Colombo Plan. The Colombo Plan is for a cooperative plan for economic and social development in Asia and the Pacific was conceived at the Commonwealth Conference on Foreign Affairs. Of the few countries who are represented at the conference were India and Canada. Canada provided food aid, financing, and technical assistance to India. Around this time was the year my mom's dad, my grandfather, was born. Even at this time, my family was not affected by the war going on, until the instrument of accession was introduced. This was a treaty signed after the tribesmen attacked Kashmir. The pact was signed between the Maharaja, Lord Louis Mountbatten, the Governor-General of India in 1947. It states that Kashmir is now a part of the Union of India. The pact is already approved by the United Nations, Indian Independence Act of 1947, and the Government of India Act of 1935. The city where my grandparents on both my parents' side lived in was Hyderabad, first established in 1951 by Muhammad Quli Qutub Shah. In 1724, the deputy leader known as the Viceroy, Asif Jah I, declared his sovereignty and created his own ancestral line known as the Nizams of Hyderabad, which means the ruler of the area. The dominion remained for about 150 years with the city serving as its capital. The city continued as the capital of Hyderabad state after it was brought into the Indian Union in the year of 1948. It was later moved after the States Reorganization Act of 1956. This is when the state split into two, one being part in India and the other in Pakistan. Years later, many on the home front had been impacted by the Indo-Pak War. Thousands were displaced and many fled due to the tensions, violence, the genocide, and to return to their respective religious majorities. Each country became less defined, as the social climates would change very often and shifted around. At the time, India had many refugees from Pakistan during the war in 1991 due to genocide, which was specifically against Hindus. The lack of security made the quality of living in India worse, which caused social anxiety to finally end the war. Jumping to the year 1999, it had been a year since my mom graduated from high school, and her parents believed it was the right time for her to get married. In my culture, many arranged marriages are popular, and so my mom's parents started to look for the ideal groom. Her parents had a few people in mind, but there was one guy who they liked the most. His name was Mohammed Farouk. In these years, my dad was working in Dubai in a BMW showroom as a senior workshop control for his service department. He returned to India when he got to know of the proposal he received from my mom's family. Both my parents got married in the year of 2000 on March 27th. After 4 months, he returned to work back in Dubai. A year later, I was born on February 11th, 2001. My parents were planning to immigrate to Canada permanently. They believed that the education in Canada would have been better for me. They thought the lifestyle here was better because it's safe and diverse at the time it was rising. My dad had completed his BTech, which is another pull factor for Canada, as there are many job opportunities in the IT field. My cousins, who were living in Canada as permanent residents at the time, contributed in their decision of moving to Canada. My parents took some time to think about it, since it was a big step for the both of them to leave their families and start a new life. In 2003, March 11th, was when we immigrated to Canada. 3 years after, on March 11th, 2006, we earned our Canadian citizenship. Ever since then, we've been living here, a country whose citizenship is recognized, where we live safely and happily, and could secure our futures. To this day, I wonder what my life would have been looked like if we were still in India. But looking at the outcome of immigrating, I'm glad to be living in Canada.